Hi guys, my name is Saurabh Porwal and I work with DevOps and cloud technologies and also train a lot of students on these technologies. So this is going to be a new series where I'll talk not just about the technologies, but also what are the different kinds of jobs which are available in these technologies. So we'll talk about the jobs in different cities, in different locations, across different geography. We'll look at DevOps jobs, cloud jobs, different types of architecture jobs, engineer jobs. We'll look at these jobs in real time, what these jobs expect, and what are the different skills that a candidate should progress with. So let's dive straight into it. And as I said, it's a different kind of series. You might not be finding it in, probably, I haven't seen this series anywhere, but I'm sure that this will be helpful. So just stay tuned. So let's search. We'll be searching in different geographies. So let's start with India. So in India, this is the most common job portal. It's called Naukri.com. So we'll just look at what are the different skills that are required. So let's start up with something like DevOps engineer. So we can have a look at different sort of skill sets. So let's start up with something up to, let's say, up to 4 years of experience. And let's start with one of the locations. Let's start with Bangalore. So whatever you see in here would apply to anywhere. So whether it's Bangalore or Mumbai or Hyderabad. So let's start with this city. I think we should get a lot of openings in here, and we'll try to analyze what are the different things that all these organizations are asking for, and if there's something that we can't understand, we'll try to get more idea about it. All right. So this is the first job that I could see, DevOps engineer. It's from a company called Fair Portal. So it's got different locations in here, asking for 3 to 7 years of experience. Now, in here, you see all these different job descriptions, the different tool sets, the level of experience is required. So let's try to understand the job description. So this corresponds to design, build, and maintain the CI/CD infrastructure and tools. So this would be more related to CI/CD requirements, containerized environments. So that would be Kubernetes, building and packaging of .NET websites, Windows services. You can do this in Kubernetes as well. Design and develop the test automation. Also, they're looking at the cloud environments. So if you have any experience on AWS, GCP, or Microsoft Azure, working closely with development teams, assist with setup and maintenance of test environments, measure and monitor progress to ensure application releases, risks and resolve issues, coordinate with multiple teams, and then some sort of BSTS administration experience in Linux and shell scripting. From the tool set points, they're looking at a couple of tool sets: BSTS, Jenkins, Bamboo, Git, Jira, Nagios, New Relic, Enterprise Linux and Windows environment. They're also looking at web application deployment and support, Oracle, MySQL, MS SQL, Docker, Kubernetes, and probably some secret management tools. So these are very standard requirements. All these requirements are not, they are expected from DevOps engineer. So working on these cloud technologies, there's nothing which is very unique to this job. So what we are trying to achieve out of this session is to have a look at different types of jobs, what is currently prevailing in the market, because looking at the job site would give you all the necessary items if you are trying to pursue a DevOps and cloud career, what you need to learn. So this is pretty standard. So they're looking at configuration management, which is Chef. Also in this, Terraform could work. Looking at CI tools, Jenkins and Bamboo, looking at version control, and Jira, Nagios, New Relic. So all these things we already teach in our boot camp and in the AWS programs. But yeah, so it's a very standard ask. The next one would be Azure Operations Engineer. So this looks like more like an SRE. So looking at talented Azure cloud operations. So this is directed towards Azure cloud. Need to work with Azure cloud, IAM and Azure AD. Looking for CCM deployments and virtualization. And then they are looking at to ensure high availability performance, reduce latency, alerting and monitoring incidents. So this is also a very standard job description that they are needing. It's just that they're only focused on Azure. Now, when they're asking on Azure, it doesn't really mean that they can only consider candidates on Azure. So if a candidate has got a real good experience in either AWS or in Google Cloud, then also these organizations they do consider. So if you have experience in one sort of cloud and they're asking in another, I think that still works if you've got everything all balanced out. But it all depends on our organization. So if they're very hardcore on Azure, they might, and if they get a candidate on Azure, they might proceed with it. You see, optional skills familiarity with Google Cloud and AWS. So there is market for DevOps engineers. So this is also a very standard operations. So where they are looking at very familiar tools, including these uh, CI/CD tools. So let's look at. So this one is in IBM, which is SRE engineer. So SRE engineer would deal with a lot of different operations management, so which is a production patches, upgrades. So they're focused on something called as cloud-based, couch-based security patches, supporting Cassandra and MongoDB. So these are the databases uh, and knowledge of Linux. So this is very focused. So working very closely with product owners, architects, release managers. So the next role that we have here is with a DevOps developer. So let's have a look at it. So multi-location, they're looking for collaborating with co-workers to conceptualize, develop, and release softwares. So this is more focused on the development and the release of the softwares. You can do multiple sorts of releases, multiple types of releases, conducting quality assurance, rolling out fixes and upgrades to the software. So this is a very standard requirement. Only that the need is working knowledge of Python, Docker, Kubernetes, and so that is so that this is a type of skill set that all the DevOps engineers they normally do have. So you must be very good with the containerization specifically. So let's start looking at the next one is senior DevOps engineer in Ericsson. So 4 to 8 years of experience required, located in Bangalore, and use cloud native technologies and tools to develop the 5G products, container based microservices, a development of automation tools, identifying bottlenecks and problems throughout the infrastructure, experience in writing the applications. And what are they asking for? So they're asking for the same set of tools: Docker, Kubernetes, Artifactory, Jenkins, GitLab, Ansible. Multiple types of deployments are available. They're focusing more on canary deployments, asking tools like Chef, Ansible, and Puppet. Anywhere between Azure and AWS is fine. Also, they have storage drivers, all these different little sort of networking requirements, and good knowledge of application and infrastructure hosts. So I think this one is good one to apply. So if you've got 4 to 8 years of experience, and what else? The next one in Siemens. So I'm just trying to look at some familiar names. So Siemens, they're asking for continuous integration and continuous delivery requirements, packaging in using NuGet, NPM, con package managers. So this one is a little bit different. So where they have very specific packaging experience required. Looking at product installations and maintenance, develop, maintains other CI/CD automation, delivery confirmation to the organizations. Also, they're looking at some of these upgrades for Windows. So Azure DevOps, GitLab, Artifactory, Jenkins, and then release management tools, YAML definition. So this is a little bit different than the others because in addition to the Docker and Kubernetes, they are also asking for these sort of NuGet, NPM, and Conan package managers. So these are used for bundling up the different sort of applications, creating installers using Wix, Install Sheet, and Wise. So these are additional skill sets that a DevOps engineer can acquire. And if your organization is not really working towards it, it might be a good idea to just have a flavor and understanding, working on your own towards these package managers, how you can do it. And then, so it's full-time permanent DevOps engineer. The next one I saw was from Accenture. So it's technology educator. Okay. So this might be a bit of senior role. So work experience 4 to 6 years, instrumental in keeping technology talent market relevant by upskilling and cross-skilling them. Train employees on DevOps principles practice. So you must have a thorough understanding about DevOps principles, practices, what are the different tools designed. So you must be aware of all the different DevOps tool stack. So right from source control, CI/CD, Kubernetes, and all the including DevSecOps, I would say. And quick learner. So obviously, because you're doing some sort of training, so a quick learner and presentation and articulation skills is necessary. So this is a role that would suit somebody who has more towards 5, 6 sort of experience rather than 4. That's what they would prefer. So in a nutshell, what we see today is uh, similar sort of requirements across the board. So you need experience in CI and CD tools. Kubernetes is very standard. Some of the organizations they require package managers, and some of the organizations they require if they're training programs, so educators in there. Let's look at the DevOps TL. So that would be team lead in Big Basket. It's all in Bangalore. So participation in day-to-day work, developing new ideas to improve CI/CD pipelines, DevOps principles and best practices, uptime monitoring and resource utilization. So they haven't written much about the tool sets, but I think when you go in an interview with this, they would be asking all what are the tools that you have worked on. Also, looks like they are focused on alerting and monitoring. So if you are familiar with, if you're using AWS, maybe if you're familiar with CloudWatch, there are lots of different tools for alerting and monitoring. So, for example, you've got Dynatrace, you've got App Dynamics. Also, Splunk is one of the which captures log metrics. So, building dashboards. So if you've used any of these tools, Prometheus and Grafana are free to try, install, and learn. So, if you're familiar with all these different tools, or otherwise, if you're not even familiar, just try to install Prometheus and Grafana on your own. Try to capture some metrics. You can forward your CloudWatch metrics to either of these and capture some good metrics and dashboards. So it's not that difficult to learn if you haven't had exposure of alerting and monitoring in your organization. Responsible for uptime monitoring and resource utilization. So it's more about auto scaling, managing the security groups, ASGs, managing the resources. So working with your EC2 instances, probably some sort of billing requirements as well. So, but if you're a DevOps engineer, you'll be aware of all these tools, custom tools and integration with existing tools, which is fine, and participate in production outage and handle complex issues. So this looks like a support role has embedded in it. So where you would be working in production, providing some support to the different teams. Yep. So similar. So there are lots of different DevOps engineering requirements. Now, if we look something towards what do we have just for even lower than that? So if we're looking for, let's say, cloud engineer, and if we are looking for something which is, let's say, just fresher or 1 year, cloud engineer in Bangalore, which is less than 1 years. So you've got a few openings in here. Let's see if there is anything from a known organization. Let's try Delphic. All right, so it's not 0 to 1 years, it's 1 to 6 years cloud engineers. It's a mid to senior level. And the roles and responsibilities require cloud solution design and implementation, infrastructure management, optimize and scale the cloud infrastructure, implement best practices, automation and orchestration, security and compliance. So this is a more of a senior role where you are expected to know about a lot of different parameters. So automation, security, cloud security and compliance, performance in the cloud. So you can have multiple levels of performance optimizations. So if it's a web server, you can have CDN. You can optimize your databases. You can optimize your load balancers. Continuous improvement and innovations. Stay up to date with the latest cloud technologies and trends, and technical support and troubleshooting. So they're looking from any of these clouds. So these are the only top three providers at the moment. So there are other cloud services, but not really anybody is interested in them. It's just AWS, Azure, or GCP. Any of them is fine. Understanding of cloud architecture, networking, familiarity with DevOps practices and CI/CD pipelines. So it's a standard ask, but it's more of a mid to senior level engineer who has already quite some experience working on these technologies. So let's look at security. Security is something which is coming up a lot, and this is going to stay evergreen. So no matter how many applications are deployed, no matter what cloud you are using, so security will always be paramount. So if you're working with, so this is working with other security engineers, operations staff, vulnerability management analysts, deploy, manage, and monitor and tune the systems with skilled architects, focus on ensuring proper implementation and execution of challenging security. So what are they asking for? So they are looking at VMware App Control, Silence Protect, WAS. This is something which is very unique, and probably this might be unique to Cocotus. So let's see what actually do these mean. So let me see. So VMware App Control, it's a security solution designed to protect the servers. Silence is an endpoint security solution. And Qualys Web Application Scanning is the security solution that helps in organizations to identify and remediate the vulnerabilities. So standard Linux commands, Bash, and then you need some sort of programming experience. So it often gets asked in a lot many questions, how much of a programming should a cloud engineer possess? So in my experience, not a whole lot of it, but you need to have a very solid foundation of programming languages, because unless and until you don't have any foundations of programming, uh, you would not be able to do much automation. So you need to understand those concepts. You need to write much scripting rather than programming in any sort of cloud engineer role or DevOps engineer role. So most rather than Python, Go, Java, you will more be focused towards writing or shell scripting, PowerShell, or writing Terraform scripts, But you definitely need to have an understanding. If you need to understand the code, you may not be asked to write a lot of code, but just to understand it. Awareness of security standards. So these are all the different types of security standards. So CIS, it stands for the Center of Internet Security, and it's a set of security practices. So which is designed for organization controls, like asset management, continuous vulnerability assessments, data protection, and DISA is, so that's the United States Department of Defense. So which is it covers a wide range of topics, including operating systems, databases, network devices. Uh, mostly they are related to if you have any defense setups. The client is a defense organization. That is where you would need DISA. And knowledge of information security, engineering experience. So cloud security, so dealing with all these different encryptions, the way the traffic is set up, setting up all your forward proxies, reverse proxies. So a little bit of infrastructure experience as well. So that is the ask. So that's from the cloud security engineer point of view. So what when we search for something like a architect, and cloud architect, let's leave the experience as open. And still, today we are focusing on Bangalore. All right, so cloud architect. So we have, and let's try to find some prominent names here. So one of them is TechM. So let's look at TechM. What TechM needs from cloud architecture. All right, so they're looking for Azure AD and Office 365. So this is D. They'll be looking for D365 as well. So which is a CRM ERP based solution. So second level support for issues to compute and on Azure. So this is all a Microsoft Cloud platform. So I think they would be focusing just on Azure. Looking at the different firewalls, Redis cache, key vault, service bus. So lots of different multifaceted cloud stuff. So let's see what they actually look like. So in terms of security, firewalls, in terms of security, so they would be looking at IAM, encryption, threat detection, the compliance, all these securities. Azure Firewall is a cloud-based network security service that can protect your virtual network resources. For Redis Cache, so it's a fully managed open source and in-memory data store. Key Vault would help in safeguarding the cryptographic keys. A service bus is a messaging service. ASR, they mean Azure Site Recovery, so which is it helps in the business continuity by orchestration and automating the replications of VMs. We're also looking at networking, OMS, which is the operations management suite, some blob storage, resource groups, NSGs, which is network security groups. So that is used to filter the network traffic to and from the Azure resources. Application insights regarding the application performance management services. And then they need some SQL Server and SQLDB databases, load balancers for distributing the incoming traffic across the multiple servers. So that's their ask. Designing and implementation of identity solutions. So that would relate more towards the IAM services. Designing solutions in Microsoft Azure, drive architecture and technical discussion. So this is more of a very senior leadership position. So generally, cloud architecture, you would require a lot of experience. You would have something like 8 to 10 years of experience at least in cloud architecture, and configure and manage customized environments and implementation of CI/CD pipes. So this might be in your past experiences where you have already used CI/CD tools, used either of the Jenkins, PowerShell, they might even consider Bamboo, Circle CI, so any sort of tools. So there's a role of a technical architect, and it's in TechM. So next one is in HCL Tech. So it's Cloud Architect Advisory. So architects are pretty much senior role. So once you have done around 4 to 5 years of DevOps engineer, then you can move on towards the architecture side. So it's more regarding the designing solution rather than just building them hands-on. So architect is a mix of hands-on as well as a thought leadership. So HCL Tech. So what they're looking at? So they are looking at. So now this one is different. So looking at the technical accuracy of bill of materials. So it's also called as SBOM, which is software bill of materials. So this SBOM is a terminology which is used to identify what are all the constituents of an application. So there are it includes a comprehensive set of all the software components. So SBOM also it also includes all the different open source softwares, the identification of what are the different security and vulnerability security and vulnerability softwares available. How are you managing all these different aspects? Supply chain security. It also works towards the regulatory compliance. What are the different automations? So automation tools also generate lots of SBOMs. So that makes it easier to keeping them all the softwares up to date. So that's the ask for the first line. Provide feedback to the sales team on the bill of material. So whatever we have spoken just now, so provide a feedback to the sales team. So if there's any other tools and technologies requirement or something that has become obsolete and now can be made redundant. So do technical validation of customer landscape. So if HCL Tech is placing you on at a customer end, so you should have the business acumen and technology acumen to understand what the customer has done so far, what are the different gaps that are in the customer's environment, and also what are the different improvements that you can do. Analyze early watch reports and technical data. Work closely with sales teams on architecture. So nowadays, pre-sales also form quite some part of cloud architect. So you might be included in some of the RFPs, RFQs, something that the sales team is working on. So you will be asked to provide your technical inputs into their sales RFQs, so which is the request for quote or request for proposal is RFP. So sizing to be the landscape for migration. So this is regarding any sort of technology migrations. You might have database migrations, cloud migrations, migrating from on-prem to cloud infrastructure, customer deal support, technical assessments with customers, networking HA concepts, RSA roles and access, customer deal support, post signature, questionnaire support. So lots of different tasks. So this is very different from cloud engineer role. So this type of role does not focus on just one set of technology. So it focuses on a candidate's entire experience on what they have done in their career. It's a pretty mature role, and that is how you are expected to. So you in order to get to this sort of role, so you must have done at least 4 or 5 years of DevOps engineering, and then slowly moved on towards an architecture. So we've got another cloud architect in TCS. So they might be looking at something very similar. So I think the lead transformation solutions, architecting and designing, create responses and defense, proposal defense for pre and post sales. See, this also has got an RFP and RFQ and RFI components. Present solution options and business case to customers. So this is a very similar requirement than what we saw to in TechM. So working knowledge of one or more cloud providers, some sort of programming knowledge, understandings, Java, .NET, and going to cloud migration and greenfield solution. Greenfield is something where the organization does not have a cloud setup, and you will be asked to set up the whole cloud infrastructure, all the networking, all the different applications, how they would run. So whether they would run serverless or whether they would be running on different clusters, GKE or even EKS, AKS clusters. So this is something where if let's say TCS is putting you onto a client where they have not evolved on cloud technologies yet, so they will need somebody who has experience in building greenfield solutions. So exposure in setting up cloud platform and foundation services, containerization knowledge, agile. Agile is a methodology, so that comes automatically when large organizations are working. They're all working in agile methodology. So if you have been a part of a large organization, and for that matter, nowadays even the smaller organizations are working on agile, so size is not an issue in here. But if you have already had agile ways, you would know how to set up all these different tickets, working on the Jira tickets, Kanban boards. There are lots of different ceremonies which agile has. So experience on agile. All right, so that's all what is required from a cloud architect. So let's look at one more, which is ITC. So I think this will be in line with the architecture as well. So ask will be similar. So you need to have a lot of experience in here for to become an architect. So good experience on cloud and on-prem solutions, some sort of Java-based applications, deployment to Azure. So they're looking at Azure in particular, but I think they might even be considering on AWS and GCP as well. So they're looking at good exposure on AWS, virtual machines, load balancers. So when you're doing AWS, you would have all these understandings. So EC2 instances, virtual machines, IAM, auto scaling, Lambda functions, serverless, API gateways for communication between the different applications, load balancers, storage, routing tables, DNS, SNS, SQS. So if somebody has worked on AWS, so they would automatically have. So these are very common functions or services in AWS. So they are also, so it looks like a multi-cloud hybrid. So they're looking at AWS, they're looking at good exposure in Azure AD, storage services, security, VM, app service, load balancing, disaster recovery. Also, they're looking at monitoring tools. So exposure to tools like Prometheus, Grafana, Nagios. You might also, if you have experience in, let's say, New Relic or Dynatrace, that's also good enough. All right. So this is what we wanted to do so far as to whatever is the salary. So, yeah, we couldn't get any salary band in here, but whatever is the expectation from all these different organizations. So there are certain common skill sets that we find. So if you are working at the DevOps engineer role, so you would have experience in CI/CD process, you will have experience in Kubernetes, doing some sort of application. They're also asking for some sort of programming language, but I think that they would not be focusing too much on programming because you're not joining as an application developer. And regarding the cloud architecture, so it's a senior role. So this is going to be an informal session, and probably if we do start up with a series, so I can start looking at what the different job trends are, and then come up to you with all these different analysis and how we should be focusing on all these. So it's important to have a job trend analysis. Try to figure out what are the technologies which are lacking behind in your CV, or try to include them in your skill sets, and then work towards your target goal. So thank you very much for joining in. So if you like this video, or if you would want to see these sort of videos where we are discussing about the job trends, where we are doing some market research, job research, because sometimes you are so embedded in whatever you're doing that you tend to forget as to where the market is heading, where what is the next set of skill sets that you need to include in. So we can look at the different geographies. We can look at the different types of requirements which are available. So today we had a look at the DevOps engineer, and cloud architect. We just focus on one location. So next time we can also look at the different other types of jobs which are available and what are the different sets of requirements. Sometimes we might come across certain dimensions in the requirements which we don't understand. So we'll do that sort of analysis as to what is required. If you if you are enjoying this video, I would request you to subscribe because that really helps. Also, if you have any questions, just put in your comments. So the next session that we'll do, I'll address your comments in that session for sure. So thank you for your time today. This is one of the series that we are trying to start where we'll be looking at all these different job trends, what are the different demands from all these organizations, how you can approach your CV. We'll also look at what are the different keyword densities that you will need to put in because a lot of recruiters, they do not have much idea about these requirements. So try to understand that the recruiter is not really working on a technology. So if there's a recruiter who has placed up any sort of requirements, they do not know what EKS means. They do not know what are the different components in Azure, or whether if you have worked on EC2, you'll be able to work on Azure virtual machines. So these are the different types of challenges sometimes you face that your CV does not come up to the match to the recruiter's knowledge about the requirements that they're talking about. So this is going to be an informal discussion. So we'll just look at all these different aspects from job search to market analysis to different types of jobs available. What are the latest technology stack? So we'll also look at different dimensions like what is happening in the AI ML world. We'll look at what are the different other upcoming technologies than DevOps and cloud. So we'll focus on general career discussions. If you have any questions, just post it in the comment in this video, and I'll make sure that I'll keep addressing them. At time, we can also go live. So I can conduct live sessions where you can just join me on Zoom, or you can join me on YouTube, put in your questions, and then we can have live sessions in there. So let me know how you think of it. Your feedback is very important. And if you like this type of video where we can do some job trends and market analysis, I would continue working with the series. So thanks a lot, guys, and have a nice day. Cheers.